Welcome. You're in the Creating a Community Partnership Toolkit session, and we are so happy to have you here with us today. We are excited to be presenting at the Oklahoma Library Association 2022 conference. I'm Courtney Shelley, and I'm here with my partners, Alyssa Green and Hillary Kuhn. I will let them introduce themselves.
My name is Alyssa Green. I'm an employee development specialist here at the Pioneer Library System.
Hi, I'm Hillary Kuhn. I am the Information Services Manager at the Norman Public Library Central with the Pioneer Library System.
Hi all, I'm Courtney Shelley, and I currently serve as the Children's Services Manager. I have served as the Project Manager for the Community Partnership Toolkit for Pioneer. Community partners are integral to library success, and though we aim to serve our communities in many ways, the use of a toolkit helps me to determine what the greatest needs might be and how to use our time effectively that will result in a greater impact. Our hope is that by the end of this presentation, you will understand why you might need a community partnership toolkit. You will come away with the knowledge of how to create a community partnership toolkit that will plug directly into your outreach services and help you to evaluate need. And for those of you who might already have a community partnership toolkit, you will see how to maximize that toolkit to meet whatever the current needs of your community are. The Pioneer Library System has a competitive internal leadership group called Impact. Each year, staff members are encouraged to apply for an immersive experience supported at a system level. Alyssa, Hillary, and I were part of a 10-person group that was selected for the 2020-2021 class. This group meets monthly for 10 months to discuss important topics in leadership, including emotional intelligence, communication, and advocacy, among other topics. As part of this experience, each group is tasked with a project to collaborate on. And for us, that meant creating a community partnership toolkit. We were asked to create a tool that could be used by any staff member at Pioneer Library System. The deliverables were to establish a toolkit that could be used to identify current and former partners, to evaluate the health, strength, and relevance of relationships with those partners, to identify blind spots and gaps in partnership, which can point to underserved or underreached parts of our communities, to identify areas in which partnerships can be diversified, and finally, to identify partnerships which may have reached their natural ending point. I'm going to pass it along to Alyssa, who will discuss with you how we created the toolkit and what it looks like.
Yeah, thanks, Courtney. So as a group, we needed to decide on a format that the toolkit would be built in. After much discussion, we landed on a SharePoint communication site. We felt that utilizing existing internal tools would help with ease of accessibility for internal staff. Next, we focused on the content of the toolkit. SharePoint communication sites are broken into pages, so it was important to determine what each page would be. And next, I'm going to kind of go over the community partnership toolkit with you, as well as how we came to that. So the elements of the toolkit, we knew we wanted to have a landing page. We wanted to have sort of what is a community partner, sort of those basics, and then a life cycle of what is a community partnership and what is that life cycle. So before, during that maintaining relationship and cultivating that partnership, evaluating that existing partnership and finding maybe gaps in your service. And then the end of that community partnership, sometimes that life cycle sort of ends. And what does that look like? How do you evaluate when that needs to end? And what do you do when it does need to end? And then we knew we wanted to have a resources page. So here we're going to jump right into the toolkit itself in each page. So here's that landing page. You can see ours here. This gives the user a brief understanding of how to use the toolkit and why it was created. From here, you can also jump to any page in the toolkit itself. This is the Library Community Partnership Basics page. We knew it was important to define what a community partnership is within the library and why it's important. What are those benefits? And help to kind of break down what that community partner is. Here we've got that before you partner in that life cycle. So establishing a great foundation for a community partner was important for us to define. There's work that goes into creating that foundation. And this page helps to guide some of those steps before you reach out to a potential community partner, as well as helping to define if this partner is a great match for both needs. Here we have cultivating partnerships and maintaining relationships page. We discussed that once that partnership is established, the work really truly begins. There's things that need to be done to ensure each end of the partnership is achieving their goals, and maintaining that relationship is really crucial. So we talk about setting some really great expectations and goals upfront, as well as some great collaboration strategies. And then here we've also included some tools for marketing and media that align with our internal guidelines. Here we have evaluating existing partnerships and finding gaps in service. This is kind of still in that during life cycle of the partnership. We wanted to make sure and capture all aspects of a community partnership relationship. Sometimes they are really long-standing, and we need to evaluate whether both parties are still meeting each other's goals. This page is going to help to evaluate an existing partnership. We've also included there, you see on the right, a compatible library partnership chart to help staff evaluate for gaps in community partners. It's important to ensure your community partnership represents your community. And when seeking to identify gaps, consider the diversity and inclusion of a partner, and also your own inclusion of culturally diverse partners. And then here, sort of the end of that life cycle of a partnership. Sometimes a community partnership does need to end. This page offers guidance on how to properly end that partnership. These can often be very difficult conversations to have with a community partner. So we felt that it was important to offer guidance and even include some sample language to help staff navigate these tough but really important conversations. And then lastly, here's that library partnership resources page. This encompasses resources for each page of our community partnership toolkit that can be found all in one place. So next, I'm going to pass things off to Hillary.
Thank you, Alyssa. All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about how to use this toolkit and what that looks like and what our experiences have been using it. Talking about evaluating current outreach services. So I've used this in a number of different ways since it's been created. We really wanted this toolkit to be accessible and useful for all levels of our organization, or in your situation, whether you're a large library with multiple levels, starting at administrative all the way down to frontline staff, or if you're a small library and you are the go-to person for everything. We wanted this to be a useful tool for anyone. And so a couple of ways that I've used it myself as a department manager, I have brought my information services team together and had them open up the toolkit and look at it. And we went page by page. And then we talked about who our current partners are and evaluated them within the purview of what was in the toolkit. And then another way that it's been used was with our department heads. We have met several times to discuss our current outreach services. And then we also included the branch managers from the other two Norman public libraries. With there being 3 libraries in this one city, we want to make sure that we're all on the same page and we're really working together. And so one of the things that we did was we all got together and we really just, you can see on the pictures here, we got out the dry erase board and we wrote down who are our current partners, who's working with who, and really tried to evaluate where we currently are. And then we thought about strategic partnerships. And so looking at the toolkit here, you see on the right some bullet points to consider. Will this partnership help fulfill the PLS or Pioneer mission of inspiring innovation, engagement, and learning in our communities? What is your mission? And is the partner falling within that? Does the organization exemplify the PLS values of welcomes, empowers, and respects? Will the partnership align with the PLS strategic plan? This was a big one for us. We have a new strategic plan in place, and we wanted to make sure that our current partners are going to align with that plan. Is there diversity of organizations represented in our partnership? That's so important, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. And then is the partnership reciprocal? It's important to consider that a partnership isn't one way. It's not just what can the library do for you, but then both. What are you contributing to the library as well? And then continued with evaluating current outreach services. On this awesome graphic that was created for our toolkit, it has a lot of areas that I have found really helpful. So you got to ask the question, like, what is the purpose of the partnership? What is the vision or strategic goal of your partnership? What are the roles defined within that agreement? Are you communicating consistently, and how is that communication going to take place? And then the outcomes, asking, what did PLS expect to receive from the partnership? How has progress and success been measured? Has a partnership been successful in achieving the shared vision and goals? All things to really think about when considering your current partners or future partnerships. And then asking yourself, is it time to end this partnership? And things to consider. Again, our mission and goals still aligned. Maybe something has changed with the other organization, or maybe your mission and goals have changed. Is this partnership still valuable in that way? Does it support your strategic plan? Again, we have a new one, so we needed to think about our current strategic plan and who our partners are. Is the partnership reciprocal? Again, I touched on that before. Is the partner reliable in meeting their requirements? Perhaps they used to be really reliable, but now things have changed. Maybe they have new staff and they're not making it a priority. So you need to think about that. And then are staff and resources required for the partnership still feasible? In the changing times, has your department shrunk? Has your branch shrunk? And now you don't have the staffing to maintain as many partnerships. Do you need to be more mindful about who you're partnering with and consider whether you need to make any changes there? And then we talked about finding gaps in service. So once we had written down all of our current partners on that big whiteboard and went through and evaluated them, then we thought a lot about, where are the gaps in our service? Are we partnering with 50 schools, but no tribal organizations? Are we focusing all of our resources on community service organizations, but maybe leaving out other areas like health organizations or something of that nature? So that Web Junction compatible library partners chart that we linked in our site, I found really helpful. And so just going through that line by line, and this is not going to be comprehensive. I'm sure there's things that are missed here, but going through these bullet points, thinking about businesses, chambers, economic development organizations, community service organizations, associations and clubs, cultural groups, educational organizations, ethnic organizations, family services, financial representatives, government, political representatives, health, legal, libraries, media representatives, organizations of or for people with disabilities, professional groups, religious groups, tribal governments, technology experts, youth services organizations, women's centers, and so forth. So really thinking about who are we partnering with, and are there gaps in the diversity of our partnerships within a branch or a system or whatever scope you're looking at. And then utilizing the toolkit resources, I think it's helpful just to know what's there. I mean, you're not always going to take time to look at it from this big picture view. Maybe you're in the weeds of it. Maybe you're in the midst of developing a partner, looking for partners, ending a partnership. It's so great to have this toolkit at your fingertips so that you know where to look when you need some guidance for that. And then specifically, when I have a new staff member who's looking to develop partnerships for the first time, I think it's helpful to direct them to this toolkit to help make those decisions. So moving forward here, helping them define what a partnership is. So any local organization, group, service, individual, business, school, or other entity that has a mutual interest in collaborating to support and benefit the larger community. And then thinking about how to maintain those partnerships. And this could be for someone new to this, or maybe someone who just needs a reminder. Maybe we've sort of forgotten the importance, or in the time of COVID, maybe it's been a while since you have been able to check in with your partners. And so great tips here, reminders to send a thank you note or informal email when you've worked together on something. Have multiple contacts within the partnership to ensure continuous communication. I think this is a key one. Contacts change, people retire, people move to different organizations, making sure that once that person leaves that organization that you haven't lost complete contact with your partner. Remembering again that they should be reciprocal and require effective communication going both ways. And then setting regular meetings with a partner to check in on goals and progress on expectations set at the start of the partnership. And then again, thinking about, is it time to end a partnership? And if so, how do you do that? And I think that can be a really daunting process and kind of a scary thing to think about. And so I think the toolkit is really helpful for that, to be able to direct to this and say, okay, what do I do when it's time to end a partnership? And here you see some information that says, be kind and firm, state clearly defined reasons for ending the partnership. Remember to celebrate what's been achieved and review partnership that has ended. Keep it conversational and allow the contact to contribute their thoughts, and try to end on a positive note. Again, just because you're ending right now doesn't mean that you're not going to partner again in the future when your goals change. And then there's some great sample scripting here for what to do when you're ending that and how to remain friends. And then lastly, just knowing where this resource page is. Sometimes it's easy to forget what page to find what specific resource. So I think it's really helpful to direct to this resource page when you're thinking about utilizing the toolkit and where to find the information that you might need. So hopefully that helps when you're thinking about how to utilize a toolkit and in your own system, if you already have one or if you're planning to create one.
Thank you, Alyssa and Hillary, for talking us through the specifics of the toolkit. That's a ton of great information that you just shared. And I want to circle back to the takeaways from all that information. So we hope that from this point, you have information about how to assess the needs in your community. Are you including diverse organizations in your partnerships? What are patrons asking for that you're unable to provide for them? We also discussed the process of creating the toolkit. So who are you talking with that could inform the end result? So for us, that meant speaking with many different people within our organization, from administration to delivery staff to people who are running our back end services, the website. I mean, there's tons of things to consider when you're developing a toolkit, and getting that overall perspective that helps you color what needs to be in your toolkit is very helpful. Hillary talked a great deal about evaluating your current services and her approach to doing that. Hillary is a frontline branch supervisor. So for her, that meant very practical approach of let's look at where we are and what we're doing, and do we see an imbalance? Are there people missing from this list? Do we need to reevaluate how much time we're spending? I certainly do think it's important in COVID circumstances that our staff time is pretty invaluable, and lots of you are operating at a lower staffing level. And so those decisions can be hard to make. So creating something like a toolkit can be helpful to know how to make those choices as well. And just overall, how to utilize a community partnerships toolkit. There are many different ways that this can be utilized. There are vendor relations to consider. There are community organizations to think about. Even thinking internally, who are your internal partners? Even thinking about from department to department, from branch to branch. How are you partnering with each other to create a larger impact on your community? So we all want to share with you some best practices that we would want for everybody to know before they enter this exciting chapter of creating their own community partnership toolkit. So I'm going to let Alyssa and Hillary talk about what they think is best for you to consider.
Thanks, Courtney. Yeah, when we talk about accessibility and simplicity, so accessibility, we really wanted to make sure that any staff member could access this easily, know where to find it. So that sort of helped our decision in utilizing a SharePoint community or SharePoint communication site. That was within our toolbox. Staff know how to navigate and know how to use that. And then simplicity, keep it simple. We didn't want this to be just a database of community partnerships that run across our system. We wanted this to really be a toolkit for evaluation and education, and allow staff to navigate at any point that they need to in the life cycle of that partnership. So if they have a great relationship and they just need to learn how to maintain that, then they know where to go for that. Or maybe they just know that they need to end it, and how do I end that? So they can choose the portion of the toolkit that would best suit them. So making sure that it's accessible and keeping it simple for the user was really important.
And then thinking about ownership and longevity, I think that we really wanted this to be a living toolkit. We didn't want it to be something that was created and then wasn't really up to date as things change within our system, within culture, and so forth. And so in thinking about where it should live, we landed on a SharePoint. One of the things we really liked about the way that we did that is that it is updated in real time. And so you can edit it and then it goes live. And that way, when staff access it, they're always going to get the most up-to-date information without having to constantly be sending people a new version of a document or uploading a new version of the document wherever it lives. This is something that is living and continually being updated. And then we had to think about ownership as well. Okay, if it's going to be living and it's going to be updated, then who's going to be in charge of keeping it updated? And fortunately, as a larger system, we have a business outreach department as well as a programming department, and they work hand in hand. And so that was a natural fit for them to be the owners of this toolkit and help keep it up to date. And that way we know someone is keeping an eye on it and keeping it relevant no matter what the situation. And then also we just wanted, thinking about it being living, we didn't want it to get so drilled down in the weeds that it wasn't useful for everyone, or that they had to constantly be updating it. So a lot of people asked us, why didn't you create a spreadsheet with all of the community partners in the system so everybody could go on there and look at who's partnering with who? But we felt like in order to do that, it would have to be constantly updated in order to keep it correct. And that would just be too much to have to deal with. So we really felt like the way we set it up, it would be useful for everyone. It would be up to date, but not something that has to be updated every day, all the time. And we knew who would be in charge of all of that.
And then one last takeaway for you all is to seek out existing resources. So resources can come from many places. So in our conversations, we made sure to talk to staff across the system about usability and getting input about what would make this tool something that they would go to when they had these questions. But also in terms of project and building this toolkit, we had an aspect of development where certain members of the impact group went out and looked for existing toolkits that were already out there. So not having to completely reinvent the wheel when you're seeking to build a toolkit for yourself. Now, our toolkit is pretty comprehensive. We try to cover most bases. I'm sure there are things that, a certain staff member might think, oh man, I really do wish there was a spreadsheet of every single partner. It's not going to make every single person happy, but if we make about 80% of the people using it happy, then I think we're doing a pretty good job with that. So we don't think you need to, build Rome in a day, basically. So think about other similar organizations like nonprofit groups, other libraries, organizations that are similar in the mission and the values of your library to see what are they doing? Do they have the toolkit that's accessible online? And I will say just a little disclaimer for everyone, the Community Partnership Toolkit that was created for Pioneer is currently an internal tool. So we don't have a link to give you so that you could go digging around in our toolkit. We're hopeful that in the future that it will be made available publicly. But this is a fairly new tool. We created this just last year and it's been in use for about a year now. And I think we've seen some great impact already for internal use. And, we're hopeful to make that available to others. But certainly there are plenty of other toolkit resources online for you to have access to. So it is about time for us to wrap up with you all. We know that sometimes you spark a question and maybe we didn't quite answer that question for you. We are happy to answer you by email if that's happened. So I have listed each of our email addresses here. You are welcome to email us any questions that you might have. And if you're creating your own toolkit, we would be happy to chat with you about what that might look like for you. So thank you all so much for joining us today. We are so happy that you decided to spend some time with us during your OLA virtual conference experience. We do ask that you use this QR code to evaluate our session and give feedback. I know the Oklahoma Library Association cares about the sessions that are included in conference. And so if you have feedback you'd like to give, please go ahead and fill out that survey for us. And we hope you have a great rest of your conference experience. Bye.